was an unusually hot summer evening when Jennifer first noticed the chill. At first, it seemed like a small draft creeping into her living room, but it wasn't long before she realized something was wrong. The windows were closed, and the air conditioning hadn't been working for weeks. The chill, however, was persistent. Every time she sat down to relax, she felt it, an invisible, icy finger trailing along her skin. It wasn't enough to cause concern, not at first, but it left her with a strange feeling of discomfort. Over the next few days, the sensations grew stronger. The cold spots in her home became more frequent, and she began to feel as though someone or something was watching her. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but the sense of being followed lingered no matter where she went. Then one night, as she was getting ready for bed, she felt it clearly. A cold, ghostly touch on her shoulder. Startled, she spun around, but nothing was there. The room was empty, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was just out of sight, hiding in the shadows, waiting. Days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences continued to escalate. Jennifer began to hear faint footsteps behind her, soft enough to be mistaken for the creaking of old floorboards, but always in sync with her steps. No matter where she went, her office, the grocery store, or even visiting friends, the eerie sensation followed her. Mirrors became unsettling. Whenever she glanced at her reflection, she noticed something strange in the corner of her eye, an odd blur or shadow that seemed to vanish the moment she tried to focus on it. The unease gnawed at her, making her feel as though her safe spaces were no longer hers. The home was the worst. Objects began to move without explanation. Keys would go missing, and she'd find them in strange places she'd never put them. Lights flickered at random, and sometimes, in the dead of night, she could hear whispers. The most terrifying part was how personal it felt. Jennifer was certain this was no ordinary haunting. Whatever it was, it had latched onto her, and it wasn't about to let go anytime soon. The situation worsened at her workplace. Jennifer had always thought of her office as a place of refuge, free from the strange occurrences at home. But soon, even there, she began to feel the weight of an unseen presence. Every time she sat at her desk, she felt as though someone was standing just behind her, watching. She'd glance at her reflection in the window and swear she saw something move behind her. When she turned, nothing would be there, just the sterile emptiness of her office. The feeling followed her into meetings and even during casual conversations with coworkers. Her colleagues started to notice her distracted demeanor, but she couldn't explain it to them. How could she? They would never believe her. Believe that a ghost was stalking her, hovering in the corners of her life like a phantom in wait. The more Jennifer tried to ignore it, the stronger the sensation became. It was as though the ghost fed on her denial, growing bolder with every passing day. Soon she felt its gaze on her everywhere she went, and she feared it wouldn't be long before it showed itself fully. With her nerves fraying, Jennifer decided to seek professional help. She reached out to a paranormal investigator, someone who specialized in hauntings and spiritual disturbances. The investigator listened to her story intently, nodding at the details, and then asked a question that chilled her to the bone. "Do you think it's attached to you?" The thought had crossed her mind, but hearing it aloud made her heart race. Could it be that this ghost wasn't tied to a place but to her? The investigator explained that some spirits are bound to individuals rather than locations, often due to a traumatic event or unfinished business. These types of hauntings, he said, were among the hardest to shake. Jennifer felt a sinking dread in her stomach. If the ghost was attached to her, then no amount of moving or avoiding places would help. It would follow her wherever she went. The investigator offered to come to her home to perform an energy reading and try to communicate with the spirit. But Jennifer wasn't sure she was ready to face it. Yet deep down, she knew she had no choice. The ghost wasn't going to leave on its own. After weeks of torment, the haunting took a darker turn. What once was a chilling presence now became a full-on assault on Jennifer's senses. Every night, without fail, she would wake up to the sound of her bedroom door creaking open on its own. The shadows in her room twisted into strange shapes, and in the darkness she could make out the faint silhouette of a figure standing by the foot of her bed. It never moved, never made a sound, but its presence filled the room with an oppressive, suffocating dread. When sleep came, it offered no relief. Her dreams were plagued with horrific visions of the ghost, faceless yet terrifying. The spirit no longer confined itself to the physical world. It had invaded her subconscious, twisting her dreams into nightmares. In one particularly disturbing dream, she found herself in an old, decrepit house, standing in front of a mirror. The reflection showed not her face, but that of a stranger, a woman with hollow eyes and a sad, haunting expression. When Jennifer tried to turn away, the woman in the mirror whispered her name. The ghost's presence became unbearable. Desperate to take control of her life again, Jennifer decided it was time to confront the spirit directly. She called the investigator and agreed to let him perform a seance in her home. The air was thick with tension as they prepared for the ritual. The investigator lit candles and placed them in a circle, asking Jennifer to sit in the center. He began to chant softly, calling out to the spirit, asking it to reveal its intentions. The temperature in the room dropped sharply, and the flickering flames of the candles dimmed as a heavy silence fell. Then, without warning, a force slammed the door shut. The investigator remained calm, but Jennifer's heart was pounding. "It's here," he whispered. The ghost was no longer hiding in the shadows. It was making itself known. Through the investigator, the spirit conveyed its message. It was angry, but not at Jennifer. It had been wronged in life, and it wouldn't stop haunting her until justice was served. The investigator warned that the spirit's rage would only grow stronger if left unresolved. Jennifer realized she had to find out more about this spirit, or risk being consumed by it. Determined to uncover the truth, Jennifer dove into research about the spirit. The investigator suggested that the ghost might be tied to an event or tragedy from its past, and the only way to free herself from its relentless pursuit was to help it find peace. Jennifer spent hours online, combing through local history and unexplained occurrences in her area. She scoured old newspaper archives and death records, searching for any clues that might explain why the spirit had attached itself to her. As the days passed, her search became an obsession. She learned about an old, unsolved murder that had taken place not far from her home, nearly a century ago. The victim, a woman in her early 30s, had vanished under mysterious circumstances. According to the reports, she was last seen walking home late at night. Her body was discovered weeks later in a shallow grave, but her killer was never found. Jennifer couldn't shake the feeling that this tragedy was somehow linked to the ghost haunting her. The victim's description, dark hair, haunting eyes, matched the image of the woman Jennifer had seen in her nightmares. Jennifer's discovery of the murder was just the beginning. As she dug deeper into the story, she found disturbing details about the victim's life. The woman, named Eleanor, had lived a troubled existence, filled with heartbreak and betrayal. Her lover had left her for another, and she was rumored to have dabbled in the occult, seeking ways to curse those who wronged her. Some said that Eleanor had made a deal with dark forces, promising her soul in exchange for revenge. The investigator confirmed Jennifer's fears. The spirit haunting her was likely Eleanor, a woman whose anger and pain had followed her to death. But there was something more, something darker. The investigator revealed that Eleanor had been known to haunt others before Jennifer. Each of them had tried to rid themselves of her, and in every case the haunting ended only when the person fell ill or met with a fatal accident. It seemed that Eleanor's spirit grew stronger with every failed attempt to resolve her pain, and now she had latched onto Jennifer with a deadly grip. Armed with the knowledge of Eleanor's past, Jennifer knew she had to act quickly. The investigator devised a plan to perform a cleansing ritual that would sever the connection between Jennifer and the spirit. But this ritual would be dangerous. If it failed, the ghost could become even more powerful, more enraged. Jennifer agreed, knowing that this might be her only chance to reclaim her life. The ritual was set to take place on the night of a full moon, when the spiritual energy would be at its peak. As the ritual began, the room filled with a cold, oppressive air. The investigator recited ancient incantations, calling upon the forces of light to banish the dark spirit. Jennifer felt the presence of the ghost growing stronger, as if it were fighting back with every ounce of its strength. The candles flickered wildly, and a gust of wind slammed the window shut. Then, without warning, the ghost revealed itself. The figure of Eleanor stood before Jennifer, her face twisted in rage. Jennifer's heart raced, but she held her ground. She refused to show fear, knowing that the spirit fed on her terror. The battle between Jennifer and the spirit seemed to stretch on for hours, though it was only minutes. As the investigator chanted louder, the room seemed to vibrate with energy. Jennifer could feel Eleanor's presence weakening, but not without resistance. The ghost's shadowy figure lunged at her, trying to envelop her in darkness. Jennifer stood firm, repeating the investigator's words, demanding that the spirit leave her in peace. With one final surge of energy, the spirit let out a terrible scream, and then silence. The room was still. The oppressive chill in the air lifted, and the candles burned steadily once more. Jennifer collapsed onto the floor, exhausted but relieved. The investigator confirmed what she hoped to hear. The ghost was gone. For the first time in months, Jennifer felt free. Yet, as she sat there in the quiet aftermath of the ritual, she couldn't help but wonder if Eleanor was truly gone for good. The thought lingered at the back of her mind, like a shadow just out of sight. Weeks passed, and Jennifer's life slowly returned to normal. The eerie sensations that had once plagued her were gone, and the cold drafts that had followed her disappeared. She finally felt at peace in her own home. However, every so often, she would catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of her eye. A shadow that seemed to move when no one was there, or a fleeting chill that brushed past her in the middle of the night. Jennifer couldn't shake the feeling that Eleanor might still be watching, waiting for a moment of weakness to return. The investigator had warned her that some spirits, especially those as powerful and vengeful as Eleanor, never truly leave. They retreat, biding their time, waiting for the right conditions to come back. Jennifer took comfort in the fact that she had fought back and won, but the uncertainty lingered. Every creak of the floorboards or flicker of the lights brought with it a moment of fear. Was the haunting truly over, or was Eleanor simply lying in wait? Jennifer tried to put the experience behind her, but she couldn't ignore the lingering signs. She began to notice small, unsettling occurrences once more. Keys missing from their usual place, lights flickering just a little too often, and the unmistakable sensation of being watched. Deep down, she knew that Eleanor wasn't gone. The ghost had retreated into the shadows, perhaps weakened by the ritual, but not defeated. Jennifer's life had returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the haunting had left its mark. As time went on, Jennifer decided to keep her experience to herself. She warned no one of what had happened, not even her closest friends. But the story of Eleanor's tragic past stayed with her, a cautionary tale of the dangers of unresolved spirits. Jennifer knew that while she might have won the battle, the war was far from over. Eleanor would return, perhaps not today or tomorrow, but someday. And when she did, Jennifer would be ready. Are you craving more spine-chilling tales? Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to never miss a new story. Join us for more terrifying journeys into the unknown, where suspense and horror lurk around every corner. And don't forget to share your thoughts and suggestions for our next video in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned if you dare.